Good afternoon, bonjour. No, I'm not Isabel Landsiedler. My name's Frank Heyworth. For the last 12 years, I've been one of the program consultants for the ECML, and I'm here perhaps representing my three other colleagues, Isabel, who is unfortunately ill, Hanna Komorowska, who is ici présente, and Marisa Cavalli, and we work together as consultants for the program. This morning, all of those who were here have spent the morning listening to the coordinators of the ECML program, which has just finished, telling them about what the projects have done. And the obvious question which arises there is, that's very nice, these are wonderful projects, but how actually are they applied? Do they fit into national needs? And what we're going to do in this roundtable discussion is to have 6 experts present ways in which the different projects are relevant to national needs and perhaps to European and international needs. The whole of the roundtable, whom I'll introduce in a minute, are involved with the ECML in different kinds of ways, on the governing board, as experts, as participants in projects, but at the same time they have important responsibilities in their own countries and at an international level. And what we want to do in this discussion is to be able to see practical, different ways in which different projects have been applied, and to look perhaps at some of the problems which are there. I thought in the last speech we heard how sometimes the reality of the difficulty of the primary teacher who has 24 children who don't speak German. The obvious question for the existence of the ECML is what we do relevant to that? Before I begin, I'd like to read a message from Canada, which has arrived, if I can find it, over the airways. Canada, as many of you know, is an associate partner of the ECML. They would have been present and would probably have been present on the roundtable discussion. And so perhaps before we begin, I just read their message from them. It's, "Dear ECML colleagues, as you know, Canada has a long history of cooperation and liaison with the Council of Europe and the European Centre for Modern Languages. The Official Languages and Bilingualism Institute, called OLBI, of the University of Ottawa, greatly value this relationship, and it's for that reason that in 2008, OLBI ratified a memorandum of cooperation and liaison with the ECML. The purpose of this memorandum is to increase contacts between the ECML and Canadian institutions working in the area of language teaching and learning by providing a contact point for the ECML in Canada, proposing Canadian experts to take part in ECML projects as associate partners, and participating as a founding member of the Professional Network Forum. It's through this mechanism that 10 Canadian experts participated in 8 projects in the 2012-2015 ECML program, Learning Through Languages, as associate partners or members of workshops or networks. This participation had a positive impact on the advancement of language teaching and learning in Canada, as described in a recent OLBI publication, Canada and the European Centre for Modern Languages, Canadian Participation in ECML Projects 2008 to 2015. Have we got a copy, Sarah? Back at the centre, okay. It is our hope that Canada's participation has also provided opportunities for European researchers and language professionals to be better acquainted with the developments and achievements of language learning and teaching activities in Canada. And they continue in French. Cette conférence de clôture se veut une célébration des nombreux succès et réalisations du programme Apprendre par les langues. Bien que nous ne soyons pas présents, nous suivrons avec beaucoup d'intérêt vos discussions en ligne. Aussi, nous nous réjouissons par avance de poursuivre cette collaboration fructueuse dans le cadre du nouveau programme 2016-2019, les langues au cœur de l'apprentissage. Nos félicitations au secrétariat du CELV, with our best regards, signed by Richard Clément, Marie-Josée Hamel, and Hilaire Lemoine from the Official Languages and Bilingualism Institute. And that's perhaps a good point to say that the roundtable discussion will be in both English and French at different times, according to the different participants. I'd like now very briefly to present the speakers. As I said, all are very much involved in national activities and with the European Centre for Modern Languages. Could I start perhaps by Marina Mattheoudakis, who is there, who's from Greece and an associate professor at the Department of Theoretical and Applied Linguistics at the School of English at the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki. And she was also very much involved in a Relang workshop, one of the workshops done in cooperation with the European Union, so that she has been involved within her work in Greece at that level. Veselina Ganeva de la Bulgarie est la vice-présidente de la comité de direction du CELV, mais également elle travaille pour le ministère de l'Éducation et de la Science. Je l'ai bien fait, oui. Et que c'est quelqu'un qui s'occupe en Bulgarie de l'enseignement des langues étrangères. Et elle également a participé dans un atelier du CELV cette année. Donc, on voit la connexion entre les deux. Dagmar Gilly, whom I have not had the opportunity of saying hello to because she's just arrived, is from Austria, from Steiermark, so is a local, and is the head of the Bundeszentrum für Interkulturalität, Migration und Mehrsprachigkeit, which I've tried to translate as interculturality, migration, and pluri or multilingualism in your version, Dagmar? Pluri, okay. And she is one of the associate partners of the Maledive project, which you have heard about this morning, if you were there, which is concerned with the problem of plurilingual education in the language of schooling, and especially in the language of schooling as a subject. So she would be involved there. And she's very much involved in the work related to the awareness of languages and intercultural affairs. Arja Krauchenberg is, yeah, you've identified, is the Vice President of the European Parents Association, and has also been involved in an ECML project which was related to linking parents to the job of education, and will be, I hope, giving us some information on how relevant, I hope, rather than irrelevant, the work of the ECML is, not just to teachers and to schools, but also to parents' associations. Professor David Little, I feel very little need to introduce, except as Emeritus Professor at University College Dublin, involved in development, research, in such a number of European projects, but very much related to the European language portfolio, to the idea of a multicultural classroom, and will be talking to us about how the work of the ECML, the Council of Europe, in which he's been very much involved, is also relevant in the context in Ireland, but also at a more European level. And finally, Dominique Chételat, who is, and I have to read it now, the part of the Secrétariat Général de la Conférence Suisse des Directeurs Cantonaux de l'Instruction Publique. Moi, j'habite la Suisse, et puis c'est un pays très compliqué, donc si on ne peut pas dire qu'il fait partie du ministère de l'Éducation parce qu'il n'y en a pas, et donc la commission des directeurs cantonaux est la partie qui fait la coordination, là où il y a coordination de l'éducation en Suisse. La Suisse a lancé un projet qui essaye de faire un cadre, pas européen, mais un cadre pour les compétences des enseignants. un cadre qui sera un cadre de référence. C'est un grand projet suisse, mais ils ont décidé que ce projet pourrait être quelque chose d'européen et ça fait partie d'un des projets du nouveau programme. Donc, ça nous réjouit qu'on voit comment un projet du SELV peut devenir un projet national et comment un projet national peut devenir un projet du SELV. D'accord? Moi, j'ai trop parlé, donc je vais demander à Veselina de parler maintenant en français et peut-être l'expérience que vous avez avec, pas avec les années et des années avec le SELV, mais vraiment le travail que vous avez fait récemment en relation du projet. Veselina.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup, Franck. Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. Moi, ce que je vais attirer votre attention, c'est l'expérience bulgare plutôt sur le déroulement de l'atelier du projet ICT Rêve qui faisait partie du programme qui est en cours maintenant, qui bat sa fin déjà, le programme à moyen terme du CELV, Apprendre par les langues. Et ce que je voudrais souligner, c'est que ce projet a eu une valeur ajoutée très grande parce qu'il a été réalisé dans le partenariat du CELV et la Commission européenne. Et maintenant, si permettez, je vais regarder mes notes pour respecter le temps prévu. Merci. Le projet ICT Rêve représente encore un magnifique exemple du partenariat du CELV avec la Commission européenne. C'est-à-dire, c'est le partenariat des États membres du Conseil de l'Europe qui, dans une bonne partie d'eux, sont en même temps membres de l'Union européenne. C'est une dimension vraiment qui parcourt tout le continent. Et le CELV a déjà prouvé à travers ses programmes jusqu'à maintenant qu'il est en mesure de répondre et de s'adapter aux priorités nationales des États membres liées à l'enseignement de langue dans tout leur sens grâce aux projets, disons, traditionnels qui sont à la base de ces programmes de moyen terme et qui proviennent de différents domaines thématiques. Mais au cours de son évolution, le CELV fait preuve de son potentiel de s'adapter et de répondre aux nécessités, disons, immédiates, spécifiques des pays membres grâce au volet dit formation et services. J'espère que tous les présents ici connaissent très bien la dimension de ce volet parce qu'il a fait partie déjà du programme en cours. Parce que ce volet rend possible la formation des personnes ressources au niveau national et aide à trouver des réponses aux préoccupations d'une importance nationale spécifique pour un ou bien un certain nombre de pays membres. Et pour cette raison, je voudrais souligner encore une fois que le partenariat avec la Commission européenne dans ce domaine, sur des thématiques d'actualité brûlantes, comme les projets Relangue, c'est relier les examens au niveau du cadre commun de référence pour les langues. Le projet ICT Rêve, c'est l'application, l'utilisation des nouvelles technologies dans l'enseignement et optimiser les classes multilingues, représente une précieuse valeur ajoutée aux activités du centre. La preuve est la demande constante de la part des États membres. Et je pourrais dire aussi qu'on est très heureux que ce partenariat continue dans le nouveau programme. Et maintenant, je vais attirer votre attention sur le projet ICT Rêve en Bulgarie. Je vous assure que l'utilisation des nouvelles technologies dans l'enseignement d'une façon généralisée et systématique est d'une des grandes priorités et le grand défi au sein des politiques éducatives en Bulgarie. La mise en place de l'atelier développer des compétences d'enseigner en ligne pour la classe du 21e siècle du projet ICT Rêve en Bulgarie fait preuve de la pertinence de ce format et des thématiques choisies. L'approche bulgare pour la réalisation de cet atelier était à la recherche de l'ambiance plurilingue dans le cadre d'une belle ville, la ville de Burgas, au bord de la mer Noire, en plein mois de juillet. Mais je vous assure que l'esprit vacancier a aidé la performance des formateurs et des participants, et maintenant vous allez voir pourquoi. Les participants bulgares étaient au nombre de 23, représentaient presque toutes les régions du pays, c'était une bonne répartition géographique, et 4 enseignants de français parlant anglais et 9 enseignants d'anglais. Le profil des enseignants était aussi très varié, des professeurs de français, des professeurs de disciplines non linguistiques enseignant en français et en anglais dans nos lycées bilingues, enseignants universitaires, formateurs de formateurs, inspecteurs régionaux de langue vivante. C'est pour ça qu'on a dit que ce groupe représentait un joli mix de langues, cultures et spécialités. Parce que les langues officielles de l'atelier étaient l'anglais et le français, bien sûr, et les non officielles, entre guillemets, c'était l'espagnol et bulgare, parce que parmi les formatrices et les participants, il y avait des personnes qui parlaient ces langues aussi. Et je vous assure qu'on a créé vraiment une ambiance vraiment plurilingue et interculturelle. Le programme comprenait des présentations, des travaux pratiques et des discussions. Mais je ne voudrais pas entrer en détail pour expliquer les contenus. Par contre, je vais vous citer quelques conclusions faites par les participants sur la valeur ajoutée de la formation. La pédagogie dépasse l'outil technique. On nous présente l'utilisation des outils qui fait sens dans une activité en classe. On évalue beaucoup la prise en compte de l'expérience des participants par l'apprentissage par pair. Les qualités professionnelles et humaines des formatrices ont été très hautement évaluées et très appréciées par les participants. Ils sont partis très motivés, inspirés, dont la preuve est la diffusion riche en activités qu'ils ont fait à partir du début de l'année scolaire. Mais je vous assure qu'il y a des activités prévues tout au long de l'année scolaire en cours. L'atelier a eu un grand succès et son impact est énorme car les participants, et si je me permets de citer un extrait du rapport final, car les participants étaient certains mordus, fervents des technologies, d'autres à peine piqués et désireux d'apprendre plus, d'autres encore ayant vécu la déception de formation en TIS, centrée plutôt sur l'outil que sur son utilisation en classe de langue, mais tout le monde a tiré profit de la formation. Les participants ont eu un inventaire assez complet des applications à utiliser en apprentissage. Ils ont pu en pratiquer certaines lors de la formation à travers les activités variées proposées par l'équipe. Ils ont été rassurés par la manière intuitive et naturelle de prendre en main une application et de l'utiliser à des fins pédagogiques. Ce que je voudrais partager avec vous, c'est que la diffusion se voit organisée à 3 niveaux, scolaire et régional, auprès des enseignants de langue de lycée respectifs, et l'utilisation réelle en classe en utilisant différents outils tels que comme Pecha Kucha, Padlet, Moodle, etc., observation des leçons et d'autres activités. Au niveau universitaire, la diffusion a été faite auprès des enseignants étudiants de différents départements de facultés. Il y avait des représentants de 6 universités bulgares, 4 d'État et 2 privés, y compris, je peux citer, l'Université de Sofia, Université de médecine de Plovdiv, Université de Veliko Trnovo, Université américaine en Bulgarie, Université libre de Burgas et la nouvelle Université bulgare. Et pour en donner un petit exemple, je peux vous dire qu'il y a déjà 2 programmes master de l'Université de Sofia où l'enseignement à travers les outils des nouvelles technologies sont présentés comme cours à distance. C'est la professeure, la maître en conférence qui a pris part et qui a introduit aussi son expérience dans ces programmes de master. Et au niveau national, pour l'instant, je peux vous citer la présentation du projet auprès des inspecteurs régionaux de langue, à l'association des professeurs en français en Bulgarie et l'association de professeurs d'histoire en Bulgarie. Et il y aura, la liste sera complétée jusqu'à la fin de l'année scolaire. Et cette fois, vraiment pour conclure, je me permets de faire encore une citation parce que je pense qu'elle est plus éloquente que moi dans ce cas-là. Je voudrais citer une des participants qui exprime les sentiments de tout le groupe, qui a dit « Grâce à cette formation, grâce aux formatrices qui sont de vrais professionnels, maintenant je me sens beaucoup plus à l'aise et rassurée en utilisant les TIS en classe. Et quel est le résultat? L'enseignement est plus réussi, l'ambiance en classe très agréable et les élèves sont plus motivés et actifs car ceci correspond à leurs intérêts. C'est leur truc. Merci de votre attention.
Merci, Vesna. Thank you very much for that account of the extent of the outreach of a particular project in Bulgaria at different levels of education. Perhaps pick up one word from it. Les enseignants ont pris en main les outils. It was really an activity of mediation, which is not just the ECML producing tools for people to use, but tools being adapted, modified, used and integrated, and people taking possession of them. And I think that's an important part of what we try to do. Could I next ask Dagmar, who's been on a very different kind of project. The one Vesna has been talking about was related to tools related to the internet. This one is related very much to interculturality, plurilingualism, the way in which varied populations can be integrated into the school. So over to you, Dagmar. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it works. So I will not just focus on my project, but give some comments on this kind of work and an Austrian perspective on that. So in my work in the field of teacher education, the ECML projects have contributed very much to enhance quality of teacher training programs and to develop both regional and nationwide training programs. This is especially true for all learning settings characterized by learners' growing diversity and migration. Since 2012, for the first time, I had the chance to participate in one of the ECML projects as associated partner. As you already heard, it was the Marina project, teaching the language of schooling in the context of diversity. And this topic is one of the most challenging in Austrian schools due to the fact that learners' diversity, linguistic and cultural diversity is growing. And that topic is now even more crucial than at the project starts in 2012 due to the current increasing migration to Austria. The work on this project came for me at the right time. National developments, basic documents of the Council of Europe, and important impulses from ECML projects were complementing each other in this case, especially with regard of Austrian nationwide teacher education reform, the so-called Pädagoginnenbildung neu. We thus had the great opportunity to embed important concepts concerning language learning in migration societies and multilingualism into the reform of our teacher education system. And this process, it was a unique chance for years to bring together perspectives, expertise, and developments on European and national levels. And on the European levels, I also would mention, on the one hand, the developments of documents of the Council of Europe, like the Guide for the Development and Implementation of Curricula for Plurilingual and Intercultural Education, and the new handbook, Language Dimension in All Subjects, and also the concept Languages of Schooling as a whole. On the other hand, with the last ECML program, Learning Through Languages, that was very important for our work. The national development in these years in Austria was a change process in the curricula for teacher education, as I already said, and the Austrian Center for Language Competences support this process in Austria from 2013 on, integrating in this process, of course, developments on European level too. And with the curriculum multilingualism as well as the framework basic competences in language education for all teachers, the Austrian Center for Language Competences offered a document of reference for the experts involved in the curricular writing process in Austria, and it was very important for us. So the cooperation in the Maledive project, as an example, is just one, was for me personally kind of building bridges. It was like building bridges between national developments and international perspectives. And this was a good way to transfer expertise and ideas in the context of teacher education in both directions. It was my impression. So, for Austria, we made, I would say, a small step forward concerning language learning in the context of diversity in the new curricula. They include more than before the language dimension in all subjects, the cooperation of all teachers, and whole school policy strategies. So we tried to integrate ECML project results directly on the level of curricula and materials to future pre- and in-service teacher training. I would say now it's up to the teachers to put the general ideas or the ideas of the curricula into practice, and it's up to us to support the implementation process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dagmar, for that very interesting account of how an ECML project can be fruitful, especially if it's connected in a country with a structure of organization of research and training and development. The work of the project is, of course, less effective if there isn't a local structure which can put it into practice, and the example there in Austria is a very good one. I'd like to stay with an Austrian, but at a European level, and to ask Arja to talk of the relevance of the work she's been in contact with the ECML and with the parents in general and the European Parents Association. Thank you, Arja.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. And I would like to start with a very short presentation of the European Parents Association, because I know that we are on a live stream today and that many people still don't know what the European Parents Association actually is and what we do. So let me just say a few words on that, and then I will come to the essential point of our collaboration with the ECML. We are an umbrella organization on European level, and our members are national and regional parents associations. We have approximately 30 members in 20 countries, from Ireland to Cyprus, from Portugal to the Baltic states. And as we are connected to the Council of Europe, we also have a non-European, geographically non-European member that is part of the Council of Europe, which is Israel. What do? We have two main goals. One is fostering exchange between our members, sharing information about different school systems, the legal base for parental involvement, the different ways of parental engagement, best practices, and so on. How do we do that? We organize 2 general assemblies per year where all our members are invited. Every time these general assemblies take place in a different member's country, and we also organize a conference in the same at the same time. And the conference usually deals with a topic that is of specific interest to the parents of that country. To give you an example, our last General Assembly took place in Luxembourg at the end of November. That was also a jubilee for us. We have existed for now 30 years, so we share something in this year with the ECML there as well. And one of the topics that was dealt with was multilingualism, because that's a very, very important topic in Luxembourg. In September of 2015, so a couple of months ago only, I've also been invited to a multilingualism conference organized by the presidency, by the Luxembourg presidency, that dealt with multilingualism in early childhood education and care, which of course is of interest to parents as well. And that brings me to our second goal. The second goal is the representation of parents on European level. Raising the voice of parents wherever we get the chance, because very often, and I'm sure you have heard that statement before as well, parents matter, parents are very important, full stop. And then there's no follow-up. We are not asked, we're not involved, we are important, but that's about it. So we are trying to change that by coming to conferences, by talking to people, because we want to be talked to and listened to and not talked about. So we are trying to establish and maintain good contacts with the European Parliament, with the MEPs, with the European Commissions, with the different directorates. At the moment, you know, it's not so easy because we have one commissioner that is responsible for education. We have somebody else who is responsible for the vocational training and skills. So we are also active with the commissioner that is active in the social field. Our president at the moment, who is Hungarian, some of you might know her, Esther Schalaman. She is also on the board of the social platform, and she works with UCSLL, so the European Civic Society for the Lifelong Learning. So we're trying to raise the voice of parents in all these organizations. Also, we're in contact with students' organizations and with teachers' organizations. So this is obviously where the connection with the ECML comes in as well, as being an organization that works or that is in contact with the Council of Europe. That is a very important point, and we have been invited to join a project that specifically dealt with the involvement of parents in intercultural and plurilingual education. Now, what was the added value of taking part in such a project? I think the answer is a bit complex in our case, because it's not one country. But I think, first of all, it was very important for the parents who were invited to the different workshops. Parents from all over Europe, who then could take back this experience to their countries, to their organizations. They usually are an umbrella organization in their own country, so they could spread the word amongst their members and really reach down to the grassroots, which is where we all want to get. I mean, I've been in quite a number of expert meetings, and one of the big points has always been, how do we disseminate our results? How do we actually bring it to the people, to the persons involved, and the ones that we really want to reach? And I think parents' organizations in this way are a very important partner, because we really have partners on the grassroots. We have parents' organizations, associations in almost every school. We're now trying to establish also organizations on the early childhood education level, kindergarten and preschool. Some countries have that, some countries have not yet. I think this is a very important point, especially in regard to languages. Yeah? The project that we had did exactly that. It tried to involve parents on all levels, and I think that's a very, very important point for us. Of course, taking part in such a project also helps us because it raises our visibility. For me today, coming here, being invited to other projects, spreads the word of the parents being active and not, as it is often seen in schools, especially by teachers, being an obstacle to whatever. So we're trying to communicate that we are ready to participate, that we are happy to do so, keeping in mind, please, that we are a voluntary organization. Each of us is a volunteer. Nobody does that as a profession. So our time and financial resources are limited. But we're very happy to participate in these kind of projects. We're also involved in Erasmus Plus projects, and for our parents, I think especially the multilingual issue is a very important one, because we have not only in different countries members with different languages, but within the countries we all have what was mentioned already before. We all have classrooms, we all have a surrounding, an environment that is multilingual today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Arja. In the presentation of the project Arja was talking about this morning, there was discussion of the difficulty in giving parents, especially of migrant or disadvantaged children, the confidence to take part in parents' activities. And I was just wondering, and it's not a provocative question, do you manage to reach out to the people for whom it's difficult to make that kind of contact? Have you any special mechanisms or activities? Perhaps it'd be interesting to hear about them.
Well, what is interesting here is that we are all looking for methods and good best practices. We have had very good experiences from our partner in Ireland, the National Parents Council Primary is very active in the field. They had this sort of challenge, especially at the beginning of the 1990s, when for the first time Ireland had a huge wave of immigration, especially from the eastern former communist countries. And that was a sort of shock to the Irish, because they had been a country of emigration throughout their history, and to become a country of immigration was something completely new to them. And they dealt very well with this new issue. They started immediately to translate all their publications, everything that existed in terms of information for parents into 6 languages, if I recall it correctly, the 6 languages most spoken by the people who newly arrived. They organized meetings with translators in order to introduce the Irish school system, the possibilities that the new arrived children had within the system, and they really did a very good job there. This was taken on also by some other countries. The problem that we have seen there is that especially the Irish Association is very well financed by the state, whereas other organizations are not. And of course, if you translate things, if you publish things, that is also a question of cost. So I think that here we need, especially in the countries where the associations are not so furbished with financial resources, we need close cooperation with the ministries in order to make these things happen.
Thank you very much, Arja. That gives a lovely introduction to David Little's presentation. David, as researcher, teacher, someone who's influenced policy, involved at a European level and an Irish level, over to you.
Thank you. Is that live? Can the interpreters hear me? You may prefer not to, but before I begin, I must correct the introduction that the chairman gave. He said I come from University College Dublin, UCD. I come from Trinity College Dublin, TCD. And what's more, I'm a fellow of Trinity College, FTCD. Now, imagine if I were a fellow of University College. Just think about it.
David, can I interrupt and grovel and lay the responsibility on the ECML who gave me a document which said University College, and I thought you'd been a traitor.
Well, there it is. But I was correctly described as emeritus, which means that I now get a pension rather than a salary. And it also means that I'm in the happy position of having absolutely no national responsibilities. And I long since ceased to have any kind of national impact. So when I was invited to contribute to this round table, I wondered what the hell I could say. And I thought, well, all I'll have to do is tell a few stories about the ECML projects that I have been involved in the past and how they seem to me. First thing I did was to go to the ECML website and look at the home page. And as I'm sure you all know, on the home page, we're told that the ECML has a mission to encourage excellence and innovation in language teaching and to help Europeans to learn languages more efficiently. It's unclear whether there's meant to be a connection between the learning and the teaching. On the whole, in my experience, the people who are most successful at language learning manage without teachers. But more seriously, this mission does pose very, very great challenges in terms of making different things happen. Educational reform is notoriously difficult to achieve, even in the short term, never mind long term. And the reason for that, I think, is that policy comes from the top down and often changes unpredictably with changes in government. And it somehow, as it trickles down from the top, got to meet pedagogical and other educational aspirations that we hope are moving from the bottom up. A very good example of the practicalities of this challenge was presented by the European Language Portfolio, with which I was closely involved for more years of my life than I care to recall. Altogether, between 2000 and 2010, 118 different portfolios were validated by the Validation Committee in Strasbourg, and they came from 33 Council of Europe member states and 6 INGOs or international consortia. And between 2004 and 2011, the ELP was the focus for 4 different, though connected, ECML projects. And as a result of that, an enormous amount of dissemination was undertaken in ECML member states, with national events being assisted from the project teams and so on. Now, in 2015, it's difficult to find people who've heard of the European Language Portfolio, never mind are making use of it. So the question is, does that mean failure? Well, of course, I prefer, having invested so many years of my life in it, to think, no, it doesn't. Because what happened during all of that time was that an incalculable number of teachers, and significant numbers of learners too, were introduced to the potential and the challenges of portfolio learning, and some people began to grapple with the implications that those challenges raise for curriculum and pedagogy and assessment. And all of that work remains available on the ECML's excellent website. It's not without a certain cynical smile to myself that I respond positively these days to increasing numbers of invitations to go and give talks to people who've apparently never heard of it about portfolio learning. When the ECML was first established, of course, and its name still indicates this, it was concerned with foreign language teaching and learning. But now its projects embrace a much wider view of language education. A major interest is plurilingualism. Education for plurilingualism, that's getting Europeans to learn more languages. and education through plurilingualism. That's exploiting the plurilingual repertoires that learners from certain kinds of background bring with them to the classroom. I'm, at the moment, privileged to be involved in a sort of research way with a primary school in one of Dublin's western suburbs that has an extraordinarily diverse pupil population. A primary school with 320 pupils, 80% of whom come from homes where the language is neither English nor Irish. Most of those 80% have little or no English when they start school at the age of 4.5. And last year we identified 51 home languages in the school. So the experience that we were told about here in Austria is something that runs through that school. It is the significant achievement of the school, the principal and the teachers, to find a way of involving all these home languages very actively in the educational process. And this has involved engaging the efforts of parents, because the goal is to ensure that each child leaves the school at the age of 12 or 13 with an age-appropriate literacy in English as language of schooling, Irish as the obligatory second language of the curriculum, French as a language that they teach on a voluntary basis in the last 2 years of primary schooling, and their home languages. And they do that without teaching them the languages, but by working very, very closely with the parents. This school has found its own way to this solution with a certain amount of help from certain quarters. I doubt if it would have done so if there hadn't been the European vibrations about plurilingualism and the various projects of the ECML, which I don't think we can claim have directly influenced what goes on in the school, but which have created a general culture of awareness, which it's been important to be able to draw upon. There's a great deal wrong with language education in Europe. That's not to say that it's all rubbish. Of course, there have always been good examples of effective language learning and appropriate language education wherever you look. But overall, the situation is still quite depressing. Read the report of the European Survey on Language Competencies published in 2012 if you need persuading of that. The problem is that there isn't a magic bullet. There isn't a magic wand that someone can wave in order to make everything as it should be regarding curriculum and pedagogy and assessment. But we do get large-scale movements like the ELP that provide enlightenment even if they don't bring the revolution about. And there are also outstanding examples of innovative practice that challenge others to try to emulate them and, if they can, do the same kind of thing in manners appropriate to their own context. And it's the ECML that actually makes those large-scale movements possible. And it's the ECML that provides channels through which innovative practice can be disseminated. Occasionally, it may only happen once in the ECML's history, you get a project that catches all the tides that are flowing in all directions, and you get absolutely irresistible impact. That is what has happened with one of the projects coming to an end now, the Pro-Signs project. Most of the people in this room heard Lorraine Leeson's presentation of that project at the end of this morning's session over in the ECML. What that project has done, using International Sign Language as its principal medium, is to recast the descriptors, scales, and competence levels to make them appropriate to the learning and teaching of sign languages, with a particular focus on the learning and assessment of sign language proficiency gained by hearing people who are going to work as professionals with deaf communities. No doubt partly through chronological accidents, this project is already creating a Europe-wide reformation of education in sign languages for hearing people. And that's a process that is set to continue. It's a process that is, of course, important educationally and linguistically. It's massively important socially, because deaf communities tend to get excluded. And for the same kind of reason, it's massively important politically. If you think of Europe on the whole in education as an area of darkness, what the ECML projects do is light lamps in that darkness that at least begin to penetrate it. I must be careful or I'll start to sound like the first chapter of St. John's Gospel. What ProSigns has done is to flood light across a whole area. The pity of it is, of course, that there are large swathes of that darkness that have never heard of deaf people and sign languages. But the fact remains that if we didn't have the ECML, there wouldn't be any lights much, and we'd still be, when it comes to language education, in the dark ages. Wouldn't that be a pity?
Thank you very much, David, for being a light in the darkness. It occurred to me as I was listening to you, it's not just making sure that the past illuminates the present, but that we're facing all sorts of new problems with needs for new innovation as well. And that is, again, a further part of the challenge we're facing. But thank you very much, David. And now Marina, who's been very patient for a long time, is going to talk about her experiences related to Relang and perhaps related to what David was saying in Greece. Thank you very much, Marina.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank the ECML for the invitation and for giving me the opportunity to share with you the experience, the recent experience we had with the Relang, with the organization of the Relang workshop. The Relang workshop was organized in Thessaloniki, Greece in May 2015, just a few months before Greece rejoined ECML after 4 years of, after a break of 4 years. And if I want to continue with David Little's metaphor, it was a dark period. And attending the workshops today actually indicated that, yes, we missed a lot. Unfortunately, we missed a lot during those 4 years, and it's a pity. The organization of Relang was possible because Greece participates in the ECML-EU cooperation agreement, and we are fortunate because we had the opportunity to have this lamp amidst the darkness. And actually, it was the beginning of a new era, it seems. The Relang workshop was conducted and led by Jose Noyons and Evelyn Berard. And actually what it aimed to do was to provide guidelines and information to the participants on relating language examinations to the Common European Framework of Reference. It proved to be a highly rewarding and informative experience for all participants, teachers, teacher trainers, and academics. It covered important issues that are of that are very important for us because Greece is a heavily exam-oriented country, so examinations are an important part of our education. So people who attended the workshop were actually highly keen on understanding how to design test items. So the design of valid, reliable, and fair tests is of paramount importance to them. Since May, since the Relang workshop, a number of seminars and workshops have been organized throughout Greece in various geographical regions, And we managed to disseminate a lot of information and the knowledge acquired at that workshop among different teachers, language teachers, foreign language teachers around Greece. Perhaps the most important outcome of the workshop is that currently there is a proposed reform of the language examinations in Greece, and this reform has taken into consideration a lot of things that were given during the Relang workshop. In particular, it seems that the new reform follows the specifications of SEFR. It seems that it is focusing more on testing communicative competence, and it does not include separate testing items for vocabulary and grammar. And that was a huge debate that created a debate during the Relang workshop between teachers and the experts. So the Relang workshop proved that such local organizations and collaborations between the ECML and member countries actually allow for more meaningful communication between the experts and the local educational stakeholders, and they allow for more targeted actions. Relang addressed a local need when we needed it and gave the opportunity for a two-way communication between expertise and specific educational needs, where both parties, experts and local stakeholders, benefited from each other's contribution and feedback. So we hope that now we are back in the ECML, we will have a more active part in those collaborations and in those projects, and we're really looking forward to that. Thank you.
Marina, we all greeted the return of Greece with cheers and fireworks. Could you tell us what convinced the authorities to rejoin?
From what I understood, the authorities were convinced by people working in the ministry right now, okay? But I think probably it's part of a larger strategic plan that aims to boost, on the one hand, the European profile of the country, and on the other, they want to invest on language education, and this is a good decision, this is a good thought, a good plan. And I think that they want to plan the language education policy in an informed way, taking into consideration the latest trends and developments in Europe regarding language education. So this is a good thing, I think.
Again, a nice light in the darkness. Thank you very much, Marina.
Thank you.
Et maintenant, finalement, Dominique, j'ai oublié de dire que vous êtes également le représentant suisse au comité de direction du CELV, et vous allez parler un peu de l'avenir et le lien entre des projets suisses et des projets du CELV. Merci.
Merci. Mesdames, Messieurs, effectivement, c'est avec grand plaisir que je participe à cette table ronde pour témoigner du rôle du Centre européen pour les langues vivantes, le CELV. Moi-même, je dis toujours le CELV. C'est peut-être une innovation, mais je vais certainement l'utiliser. Je commence tout d'abord par un bref regard sur le programme 2012-2015. Par ses travaux, le CELV a participé à l'atteinte d'objectifs pour la Suisse au niveau de la formation en langue. Et il me tient à cœur d'en citer deux pour montrer les liens qui existent entre le niveau européen et le niveau national. Le projet du CELV plurimobile, coordonné par Myriam Egli, a permis de mettre en place des scénarios pour les échanges et la mobilité des élèves et des enseignants en formation. La coopération active entre tous les membres du projet a favorisé l'échange des expertises, la mise en place de nouveaux modèles et la création de réseaux indispensables à ces activités. Un projet national inspiré de Plurimobile et de la version suisse du portfolio européen des langues prévoit de développer un module complémentaire du PEL visant spécifiquement la réflexion de gymnasiens sur les expériences acquises lors de séjours de mobilité et d'échange. Un deuxième exemple. Dans le cadre de ces activités de médiation, le CELV a soutenu la mise en œuvre d'une éducation plurilingue grâce à la formation sur le cadre de référence pour les approches plurielles, le CARAP. Cette formation était destinée aux formateurs d'enseignants et elle a eu lieu en Suisse en mars 2015. Brigitte Gerber, Béatrice Léon Fortet et Jean-François de Pietro, qui sont chargés de la diffusion du CARAP en Suisse, sont intervenus aux côtés de Michel Candelier et Didliko Lorins pour transmettre ces informations. Cette manifestation a connu un grand succès et elle a parfaitement atteint son but. Avant de passer au contenu du nouveau programme 2016-2019, vous me permettrez un court rappel de notre réalité nationale afin de mieux situer l'articulation entre niveau national et niveau européen. En Suisse, l'éducation relève principalement de la compétence des cantons. Ceux-ci coordonnent leurs travaux au sein d'une instance politique, la Conférence suisse des directeurs cantonaux de l'instruction publique, qui regroupe les 26 conseillers d'État responsables de l'éducation. Cette conférence vise à l'harmonisation des politiques éducatives, notamment dans le domaine des langues également. La stratégie des langues adoptée par cette conférence en 2004 préconise l'apprentissage d'au moins une autre langue nationale, elle varie selon les régions linguistiques, et de l'anglais dès l'école primaire. La première langue étrangère est enseignée à partir de 8 ans, la deuxième à partir de 11 ans. Ce modèle, actuellement réalisé dans 23 cantons, est toutefois régulièrement débattu au niveau politique. Comme nous le savons, il ne suffit pas de changer les programmes pour mettre en œuvre un enseignement de langue de qualité. La compétence langagière et didactique des enseignants est un facteur crucial pour la qualité de l'enseignement. Dans ce contexte, la Conférence suisse des directeurs cantonaux de l'instruction publique a retenu dans son programme de travail et comme une priorité nationale l'élaboration d'un outil de référence pour les compétences des enseignants de langue. Je cite de mémoire, et c'est l'allocution de M. Little qui m'y fait penser, « Une petite étincelle suffit pour allumer un grand feu ». Et effectivement, ceci est aussi vrai dans le domaine de l'enseignement et dans le domaine de l'apprentissage des langues. Nous sommes donc très heureux que le projet Bleichenbacher, qui s'inscrit dans celui vers un cadre commun de référence pour les enseignements de langue, ait été accepté par le CLV pour son nouveau programme 2016-2019. Ce projet fait le lien avec notre priorité nationale, la formation des enseignants de langue, et la genèse de ce projet montre les interactions constantes entre les niveaux national et européen. Au départ, ce sont des questions du quotidien scolaire. Comment gérer la classe en langue étrangère? Comment correspondre avec des collègues d'autres régions linguistiques pour assurer la réussite des échanges? Que faut-il savoir en tant qu'enseignant pour sélectionner, adapter ou élaborer du matériel pour les cours? Ces questions sont à la base des profils de compétences langagières spécifiques pour les enseignants du primaire et du secondaire 1, c'est ainsi qu'on les appelle en Suisse, ou des profils suisses comme ils sont dénommés dans le descriptif du projet du CELV. Ces profils, après cette première partie réflexive, ces profils ont été précisés et opérationnalisés sur la base des instruments du CELV, notamment le portfolio européen pour les enseignants en langue en formation initiale, le PEPELF, le CARAP, ainsi que le CECR. Les profils ainsi révisés ont été différenciés suivant les niveaux d'enseignement, primaire ou secondaire, et complétés par un ensemble de produits directement utilisables, tels que des scénarios pédagogiques pour la formation initiale des enseignants et des modèles de formation basés sur ces profils à l'intention des instituts de formation. Ces travaux ont été réalisés par un consortium suisse constitué d'experts issus de plusieurs hautes écoles pédagogiques et d'universités sur mandat de la Chambre des HEP en collaboration avec la Conférence suisse des directeurs cantonaux de l'instruction publique et avec le soutien de l'Office fédéral de la culture. Concrètement, les profils décrivent un ensemble de tâches de communication langagière pertinentes dans le quotidien professionnel des enseignants et répartis en 5 champs d'action. Préparer l'enseignement, dispenser l'enseignement, évaluer et donner des feedbacks, établir des contacts et finalement se former. Les profils spécifiques offrent un cadre d'orientation pour la formation initiale et continue des enseignants de langue en vue d'un enseignement moderne, didactique du plurilinguisme, enseignement orienté vers les contenus, enseignement bilingue, apprentissage basé sur les tâches. Au mois de septembre de cette année, donc ce n'est pas très vieux, la conférence des recteurs des hautes écoles suisses, Swiss Universities, a émis des recommandations pour leur utilisation dans les instituts de formation des enseignants. Dans le contexte européen, le projet étudiera les spécificités et les complémentarités des instruments existants qui permettent de décrire et d'évaluer les compétences nécessaires aux enseignants de langue. Un guide de leur utilisation sera élaboré et un cadre commun de référence sera, le cas échéant, développé. La constitution d'un consortium européen favorisera le partage des expertises, la mise en commun d'analyses, la prise en compte de réalités variées dans des contextes toujours différents, la richesse des idées et l'approfondissement des points de vue. Le soutien du CELV forme ainsi une condition de base pour l'élaboration d'un outil complet, polyvalent et convivial. La réalisation de ce projet dans le programme 16-19 du CELV contribuera à l'harmonisation de la formation des enseignants de langue de l'école obligatoire en Suisse et peut-être aussi en Europe. Merci de votre attention.
Merci beaucoup, Dominique, de cette conclusion qui donne une impression de la richesse possible des liens entre le CELV et un pays et à un niveau plus large en Europe et montre la façon dont l'un va influencer l'autre. Je pense que c'est important que c'est une coopération mutuelle qui fait ça. On est arrivé à la fin. Est-ce que j'ai le temps de poser quelques questions ou de demander des commentaires? Alors, à vous, si vous voulez, soit poser une question, soit faire un commentaire. Open for questions and comments from the floor. Francis, peut-être?
Oui, Francis Gilly, ministère français de l'Éducation nationale. Tout d'abord, un grand merci pour vos interventions. Il serait très facile aussi pour la France de dire l'intérêt évident des outils du Conseil de l'Europe pour les évolutions de la politique des langues vivantes et l'usage et la pratique des langues vivantes en France. Simplement, il me semble que ça ne peut plus suffire. Dans le contexte actuel, ça ne peut plus être suffisant. Bon, la France, comme sans doute d'autres pays, est dans une situation où des valeurs comme la tolérance, l'ouverture à l'autre, le respect de la diversité sont attaqués, voire mis en cause, que ce soit de l'extérieur ou de l'intérieur. Et il me semble, petite personne, qu'il est de plus en plus indispensable d'afficher, d'affirmer, d'expliciter la dimension européenne. Et donc il me semble que par rapport aux outils, ce serait un piège, ce serait dangereux, voire dommage, que les outils du Conseil, du CELV qui sont proposés ne soient présentés que comme des outils techniques, comme des réponses techniques à des problèmes techniques, et que nous aurions au contraire tout intérêt à mettre en avant les valeurs qui sont les nôtres, les valeurs qui portent ces outils, car tous ces outils sont portés par la défense de valeurs. Simplement, ça ne doit pas être simplement ce qui sous-tend. Je pense qu'il est indispensable de les mettre en avant, de mettre en avant cette dimension européenne, ces valeurs européennes. C'est ça dont nous avons aussi besoin, et pas seulement de réponses techniques. Et puis juste un autre exemple, j'ai eu la chance de coordonner un projet qui se termine, et j'ai pu voir, en faire l'expérience, à quel point les produits que nous avons élaborés, le produit que nous avons élaboré, a été profondément transformé grâce à l'expertise de systèmes éducatifs très différents, grâce à la contribution de tous ces pays avec lesquels nous avons travaillé. Et il me semblerait, moi, dommage que c'est ça, justement, la dimension européenne. Et que ce soit justement uniquement dans la genèse et pas dans la présentation première. Il me semble que pour nous, en tout cas en France, ce qui serait souhaitable, c'est que tous ces outils, on les présente, on les affiche comme étant vraiment le produit de cette expertise et cette contribution de tous ces systèmes éducatifs, et pas seulement comme le produit de quelques experts ou d'experts qui sont réunis, qui techniquement ont répondu, ont donné les outils présents. Il me semble que là, nous avons besoin, ce n'est pas du tout contre les outils, j'y crois beaucoup à ces outils, ils ont été très utiles, mais que le besoin de notre État, ce n'est pas seulement un besoin technique, mais aussi un besoin politique, et qui d'autre que le Conseil de l'Europe peut l'apporter. Et je pense que le CELV a une tâche, une contribution extrêmement importante à nous apporter dans ce combat pour les valeurs qui sont les nôtres.
Je pense que je prendrai ça comme contribution supplémentaire importante. Et peut-être, j'ai vu que Branca avait quelque chose à dire, enfin, si on peut donner la chance plus de personnes possible.
Thank you. I'm Branka Strauss from Slovenia. I would like, first of all, say that in Slovenia we have largely profited from the work of ECML, because we've been engaged very actively in 4 of projects, so ICT Rev, Relang, Qualirom, and now FREPA. And what I wanted to add is the added value for my country is that those projects somehow make us work together between different groups of people. They haven't worked together so far. For example, for ICT Rev, it was for the first time that the counselor for foreign languages and Slovene language, so the language of instruction, worked together. So it was this kind of mixture. Then, for example, for Qualirom, the Roma communities, they are different in a small country, so we make them come together and speak the same language and try to find the way how to proceed, how to make Romani language more present in the society. And for example, FREPA now, it's the didactics from, experts from didactics from different languages, different universities, which is always very difficult to make them work together. So they've come together, and we've had very nice event last Friday, with many cases, examples of a good practice, and with those experts present. So this is from the point of view of the country, how we could profit and how the ECML work influenced our work. But on the other way, I would like to say, because it was not mentioned today, that also representatives of member states could bring our reality to the work of the program of the ECML. And for example, in the whole process, because I'm also the member of the governing board, I can say that the process of forming the call and then to select and of the projects, all member states were present, had the possibility to participate. We have established this list of national priorities. I think that it was very valuable, because it was really the added value on both sides, either on, I can see it from country side, a member state side, and how we could influence and have our say in the common work. So thank you for the Secretariat of the ECML, who really did a great job making us all work together as they had. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that account of the ECML as a catalyst for action in a national context, and the national context being a catalyst for deciding what the ECML is going to do. Lucille.
Thank you very much for the presentations. I want to speak about Armenia. Armenia joined European Center for Modern Languages in 2001, and it is nearly for 15 years we are involved in many of the projects of the center. And I want to speak now about the values. When we are participating in different projects, we are adopting these values. And I can say that all the projects of the center are based on certain European fundamental values. And this increasing of the transparency, improving the quality of education, extending the accessibility of all to different kind of learning opportunities are all values. And when we are in certain kind of projects, we are improving the quality of our education, and at the same time, we are adopting these European values. And thank you very much to the Center for enabling us and for providing Armenia for such a good chance. Not only me, but all my colleagues since 2001. A lot of people participated in different kind of workshops. Some of them were in projects as experts like Epostal, Link, and some others. And I want to say that the recent two regional workshops on FREPA and RELAG were very, very efficient, as a lot of Armenian teachers, university professors took part in these events and benefited from them a lot. Thank you very much.
I think we should close there as tea and coffee time is approaching, and it's nice to have Lucy's final word on the contribution of the ECML to an education of quality, which is what it's all leading to in terms not just of techniques but of values. I'd like to close by thanking so much all the members of the square table, the oblong table which is there, given us lots of things in terms of information about the ways in which the ECML interacts with countries and how countries interact with them, and how these can be seen not just on a national but on an international level. So very many thanks and lots of thinking, and it's time for a break, I think. Thank you very much.